Hey, Riding Side Saddle, we're back with Tammy
and Lisa,
and we are discussing Women Who Run with the Wolves, a book written by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, PhD. So on our last episode, excuse me, I'm still a little bit sick of this cough that just won't go away. In our last episode, we got through some of the introduction.
a portion. We had a little bit of catch up first, just to check in and
right.
See how the holidays went.
Yeah.
Bitched about the cold weather for a little while.
Yeah.
And then we dove into the introduction.
Right. So we didn't go all the way through the introduction. It's the introduction, right? It's just really intended to get you a taste of what the book is like. So we got through some of that, and we're wanting to dive into this chapter 1 today. But we're going to do just a quick little
snippet.
Yep, from the introduction. We didn't talk about in our last episode, but it is really important to just the basis of the book. So
yeah, I think some of the grounding or foundational is in this book. The folklore and the stories and the fairy tales that she refers to and dissects really are diving into the psyche of the feminine, the very unique aspects of the feminine psyche that are different and than what society has expectations around. The overculture has kind of dictated and told that, this is what it looks like to be an appropriate or good woman. And she talks much about the instinctual and natural aspects that
they kind of got stifled, didn't they? Not kind of. They did get
very
stifled.
Much gotten buried, which honestly is what chapter 1 really starts talking about, is uncovering the bones, right? Those pieces.
Resurrection of the wild woman.
Yes, the pieces of yourself that can't be destroyed. They're buried, but can't necessarily be destroyed. So just laying some foundation around, what it is that this book is trying to achieve.
Right. So on page 9, right? We said that we were going to start with chapter 1, and then after we stopped recording, I was like, well, we could start on chapter 1, but I really wanted to talk specifically about this thing on page 9, and maybe a little thing on page 10, because... and maybe 11 and 12.
No. The other ones I can forego. But as Tammy said, this book is it's moving me.
Yeah. You're so excited about this book.
I know it's a hard read, and I agree that it's a hard read. It's not an easy read for me, but it is so profound to me that I will sweat, blood, sweat, and tears to get through this book so that I can understand it. But on page 9, this in the first full paragraph, it really resonated with me because she talks about this wild woman aspect, and it is there. It is there no matter how suppressed a woman is, right? That this aspect of herself is going to struggle upward. No matter how many times this aspect of woman is pushed down, she is going to come back up again. No matter how many times she is forbidden or quelled or cut back, diluted or tortured, touted as unsafe or dangerous or mad, she is coming back. That is that resonates with me.
Yeah.
No matter how often you're told that's crazy, that's foolish, we don't do it that way.
Nice girls don't do that. Yeah.
Nice
girls don't say that. They don't think that.
It still surfaces.
Right.
She does not rest.
No. She says even the most restrained woman keeps a secret place.
Yeah.
For her.
And I know women like that.
Yeah.
I know women, and they have shared their secret parts of themselves with me that they keep from their children or their spouse or anybody who knows them from the outside, I know those secret places for some women. Not everybody shares that with me, but some like deeply personal relationships are very different when they feel safe as opposed to how they're supposed to be. And I guess that's why I wanted to draw back to that, because even the most proper, put together, obedient, maybe the right word in this sentiment, she still has the wild woman
for sure
knocking at her door, and it's going to come out.
And Clarissa talks about that. She says, even the most captured woman guards the place of the wildish self, for she knows intuitively that someday there will be a loophole, an aperture, a chance, and she will hightail it to escape.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Yeah. So on page 10. and we do not have to go through the rest of the introduction.
But I had a lot highlighted on page 10.
Me too.
Actually.
Like practically the whole fucking page.
Yeah.
So as it relates to this captured woman that doesn't feel safe, right? It starts talking about symptoms of this wildish force that's been stifled or buttoned up or pushed back. And she goes through, it's the first full paragraph again, and the second, and maybe even the third and fourth.
The rest of the page.
Yeah, but it starts giving some language around how women feel when they're suppressed, when this wild woman aspect is suppressed.
Yeah.
And it goes on and on. I jotted down just a couple that resonate specifically with me. Stuck. I use that word a lot. I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Fatigued. Like, I just don't have the energy to put into this.
Yep.
It's not worth it to me. I'm tired of doing this.
Yep.
Unaroused. Afraid. Afraid is a
big
huge one for me.
Yeah.
It governs my life. Afraid was probably the biggest one for me.
Yeah.
Uninspired, I feel like that is, very similar to unaroused. Depending as to how stuck or frustrated or unable to tap into this wild woman aspect, volatile might be a good definition for me. Shaky or blocked. I feel blocked often. But I think the piece that...
uncreative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the piece for me personally that probably resonated the most is the discussion about fear. So towards the bottom of the page, to fear to venture by oneself or to reveal oneself, fear to seek a mentor, mother, father, fear to set out one's imperfect work before it is an opus. Fear to set out on a journey, fear one will run on, run out, or run down. Humiliation, angst, numbness, anxiety. Afraid to bite back when there's nothing else left to do. Afraid to try something new. Fear to stand up to. Afraid to speak up. Afraid to speak against. These are things that I am literally working on right now as a 50-year-old woman. Like to speak my truth, to have conversations that have been in the can, as Tammy would put it, for 35 years.
Yeah. Enough holding that in the can.
Yeah. Because I've been too afraid. I had a dream recently. So this, and I know we haven't even gotten into chapter 1. I had a dream recently, and you know how dreams impact me.
Yeah.
They're really, really
strong. You get a lot of messages from dreams.
It was a dream about me going through a graduation or a reunion of sorts. And I was meeting people along the way through this a variety of different rooms. And it was a reunion, and we're graduating, and people are talking to me like I know them, and I should know them, but I don't. And I'm looking at their face and I'm talking to them and I'm like, who the fuck are you? Like, you know me, I don't know you.
Right.
And I continued to go through these rooms kind of feeling like I should know you. Maybe I had a fake persona, but I don't really know you the way I would expect that I would. And then just before I woke up, I had the message come through to say, you are afraid of the truth.
Oh.
And when I woke up, I thought about it and I contemplated it for quite some time. It actually was extremely relevant with some things that I was going through, just personally speaking. Yeah. And I realized that as hard as it was going to be, I needed to have some real truth conversations with people in my life that I hadn't been entirely truthful with because of fear.
Yikes.
That's
huge.
It was a huge shift.
Yeah.
It was an enormous shift. And it's sad. I'm really sad that I spent that long of a time being afraid of the truth. I think that it damaged me. I think that it damaged relationships, or what could have been maybe a more whole relationship. But I can only do the work now.
Right.
I can't change
undo.
what happened in the past.
No.
But
well, it goes to authenticity and vulnerability,
it does.
right? So
it does.
If you aren't bringing your whole self to a relationship, then you can't expect to feel whole in that relationship because you're holding back.
Right. And I'm covering and faking some.
Sure.
And it made a lot of sense to me around why, when I was walking through this series of people in these rooms, that I was supposed to know them, but I really didn't.
Wow. That
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. That's really impactful.
Yeah. So fear is a huge, huge piece for me in finding that aspect of Wild Woman, because although it wasn't great. I didn't love doing it at all. I still overthink
Talking to people, being more honest and truthful.
And I have anxiety around it, but I do feel more solid.
Yeah.
And it's something that I'm not ever going to change again.
That's what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Once you find her, you'll do anything to hang on to her.
I'm not going back.
Yeah.
Because that was worse.
Mm-hmm.
That was worse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we can move on to chapter 1. So sorry.
Well, chapter 1 starts on page 23.
Thanks.
It's called The Howl, Resurrection of the Wild Woman.
So in this, as we had mentioned in our previous episode, she refers to the wolf woman, or La Loba, in her heritage. And I have things jotted down, but it's not what's coming out of my mouth right now. So the concept of La Loba, or the wolf woman, is that this beast, because she refers to her in language that is circumspect, often hairy, always fat, and especially wishes to evade most company. She is both a crower and a cackler, generally having more animal sounds than humans ones. So this wolf woman is truly kind of beastish.
Yeah.
But the role of the wolf woman is to collect bones. And as in the story, the way the folklore goes, she collects bones of those animals that have been lost. most specifically wolves. Well, she's connecting wolves with women, right, throughout the book, and aligning the aspects of each of those creatures. But La Loba takes and finds the bones of wolves, and she puts them together the way the skeleton would be in a live wolf. And once she has every single bone of that wolf skeleton put together, then she sings over it. And it isn't a singing. I mean, this is a beast, right? She's hairy and crowing and cackling. It's the soul song. So it isn't melodic in any way, but it is deep to the core.
She's breathing life back into the wolf, which really is the woman.
Which is the woman.
Right.
Because ultimately, through this transition of the skeleton of the wolf, it comes back to life. And it comes back to life in the form of a wolf initially. But then as it runs off, it's uncovered as a woman with a mane of many, many colors.
Right.
So conceptually, that's what she's asking us to do. The bones that La Loba finds are those pieces of yourself. And you might spend your whole lifetime figuring out, like, this is a bone, this is a part of myself that has been overlooked or not grown or forgotten about or told it was bad, and putting those bones all together, that's when life comes in.
Right. I get it. I think she, at the beginning, even before she tells that story, because, I mean, this woman is very smart. Clarissa
Clearly
is very smart. But so she realizes that some of these things are, because they are so abstract, it is hard to really understand where she's going with it. So she kind of gives you a little tutorial on how to dissect the story like you just did.
Yeah.
On page 23, she talks about we enter into a story through the door of inner hearing. The spoken story touches the auditory nerve, which runs across the floor of the skull and into the brainstem. Auditory impulses are relayed upward into consciousness, it is said, to the soul, depending on the attitude with which one listens. It assists greatly if we understand stories as though we are inside them rather than as though they are outside of us. She talks about how the auditory nerve is divided into 3 or more pathways deep in the brain. So we're meant to hear at 3 different levels.
Yeah.
One pathway was said to hear the mundane conversations of the world, like just actual words that are spoken, right? No meaning behind them. They're just
regular
words.
everyday shit.
Yep. The second pathway apprehends learning and art. And the third pathway is so the soul itself might hear guidance and gain knowledge while we're here on earth. I almost think like that would be like your subconscious.
I agree.
Listening, right? So she says, listen then with soul hearing now, for that is the mission of the story. And I think if you keep that in mind, rather than just, these are just words, right? And they're very superficial, at a superficial level, and if you breeze over them, you're never going to get the meaning of of her stories, right? And she's a storyteller. That's what she does.
It's the type of story, literally, and I know I'm repeating in a different way, but the type of story that touches your soul.
Right. It breathes life back into your soul.
You're like, yeah, what I just said.
Well, whatever. But that's what she's getting at. These stories are meant to waken up your soul.
Yeah.
Right? Those
Absolutely.
parts of you that you've pushed down and set aside, and whether you did it yourself or someone else diminished it, all of those parts that make women
at the core,
not wearing lacy dresses and things like that. Yes, right. That's what she's trying to get you to listen with that soul and wake her up.
Yeah. On page 26, I think I literally highlighted the entire page.
Did you?
Yeah, there was just so much there. But as I'm looking through, it may very well be when I got super excited and started sharing the whole story about La Loba.
You liked that story, did you?
I did like that story. Yeah. I learn by stories. It is a connection point for me. Like, I draw myself into it. So maybe that's why I'm so excited about this book. But some of the comments that I had written out about page 26 was the connection of your own buried bones is represented by La Loba, the desire to bring them back to life.
Yeah.
Those parts of yourself, that's the singing part. Like, that's
Right.
the moving part. You can find those pieces and do absolutely nothing with them. Right? You can know about each bone or each part of yourself that is undiscovered,
unsatisfied, unfulfilled.
Buried. Yeah.
Squashed.
But until you use that deep soul song, the life isn't going to be put back into those parts of you.
Right. She says this is done by descending into the deepest mood of great love and feeling, till one's desire for relationship with the wildish self overflows, then to speak one's soul from that frame of mind. That is the singing over the bones. We cannot make the mistake of attempting to elicit this great feeling of love from a lover, for this woman's labor of finding and singing the creation hymn is a solitary work, a work carried out in the desert of the psyche. So, you complete me. I don't know.
I don't think that exists.
No. But that's exactly what she says. So you can't go looking for that completion from somebody else. Only you can complete you. Only you can wake your soul up.
You know what's interesting? I just had this thought, and I don't know if it connects. It probably connects to some degree. If I could work it to make it connect, if I really wanted to. But you know how sometimes when we talk, or girlfriends talk in general, and we're talking about our relationships or our work situations, or our kids, or whatever, any type of relationship that you have, and you're frustrated about particular aspects of it, and you're like, well, why can't they just do this? Or I would feel more loved if, and
I would be happy if only you didn't do that all the time. Yeah.
And I feel like this chapter speaks directly to that. Like, just stop.
Yeah.
Stop doing that, because that's not where the problem is.
Outside.
It's not where the problem is.
Nope. You're unhappy because you're unhappy. Other people are not responsible for how you feel.
Yes.
They're not.
And also that is the output.
Right.
The way they're treating you is after the equal sign. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the work, the actual function of the equation is in your own bones, identifying your own self and what's important to you, or the lack of doing that. And as a result, Scott did this, and it made me feel unloved or unworthy or disrespected, or my kid used me or took advantage of, or is super selfish because of. That's all after the equal sign. All of the work internally, the equation wouldn't match up if you actually did the work internally. Does that make sense?
Kind of. I think let me see if I can say it in a different
more
way.
Eloquently?
No, not more eloquently, but let me just see if I understand what you're saying by repeating it in my own words. You wouldn't be upset with someone for doing X, because, I'm losing it now. If you were already connected to your very soul, somebody doing X doesn't make you feel Y.
Right. If you were if you were connected to your soul, somebody couldn't do that. Like that just wouldn't be a possible equation answer.
So the equal never happens.
The equal would be something else. So 1 + 1 = 2.
Right? We never get to 2.
1 + 1 = 2. Okay, so just say, I have insecurities around such and so. So that's a number 1.
Okay.
A number 2 is that insecurity's been reinforced my whole life. So now it's like kind of a belief. And as a result of that, or equal to, my partner reaffirms that insecurity.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
A little bit. Mm-hmm.
So
A little more.
if I were to unbury the bones and work into that and bring them to life,
Because you
then
wouldn't
it
have the
wouldn't be-
insecurity.
right, it wouldn't be 1 + 1 anymore.
Therefore, it wouldn't be a trigger.
Therefore, I wouldn't get the result that I get today.
Right, right.
I know that was
Yeah,
convoluted.
that was a stretch.
I have to work that out a little bit in my head, but there's something
There
to
is
that.
something there.
It just wouldn't match.
Right,
It's like vibrationally.
right.
Like if you think about it from a vibrational perspective, right? If you're focused on a particular thing, that's what you're going to get. And it's the same thing I'm trying to say here.
So if it's not a trigger, it
You
never
won't have
comes
that-
into play.
You won't have that as an outcome anymore.
Right. Gotcha. So you think if you've done this La Loba work, then you don't have the trigger anymore. Therefore, the behavior doesn't come, which triggers the trigger.
Yeah. I have to think about that a little bit more. I'm speaking from a place of
It's an idea.
yes.
Okay. It's a thought.
I'm not entirely sold on it, but I'm about
Okay.
3/4 the way there.
Okay. Well, I don't know. All I know is that you cannot do that soul work with somebody else. It doesn't come from someone else. It is very solitude kind of work. It is something you work on, well, by yourself.
It is.
No one
It's
else
deep.
can fill that for you.
You have more tabs in this section than I do, so I'm going to let you
All right.
continue on.
On page 30, now we've got somebody shoveling snow, so you might hear the shovel scraping. On page 30, she talks about the river beneath the river. Rio Abajo Rio. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I don't know Spanish, but she talks about that you get there through deep meditation, dance, writing, painting, prayer making, singing, drumming, active imagination, or any activity which requires an intense altered consciousness. A woman arrives in this world between the worlds through yearning and by seeking something she can see just out of the corner of her eye. I mean, that is the wishing, hoping, daydreaming, planning, creating
1,000 ways.
part of your whole life,
Yeah.
right?
And it can be done in 1,000 different ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We call it self-care. That's the term we use in 2024.
Right.
She calls it access to Rio Abajo Rio.
Yeah.
This is not a new concept
No.
at all. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about at the end of season 5 about creativity being essential. Like
that was-
water and food and shelter. It's essential
That was kind of a theme throughout.
in season 5.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And little did we know. Like, I think
Yeah.
you and I have talked about the conversation that Rhonda had during her episode with us,
Right.
and how moving and impactful that was on so many levels. To and you'll be able to say this more eloquently than I am, but she talked very deeply about the simplicity of we are creation. We are here to create.
Right.
This is our
We were
role
made by
here.
a creator to create.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It was very impactful to me. And that, I mean, that's what this part in chapter 30 is talking about. And this, a lot of what occurs in that world between the worlds is, it's mysterious. It breaks physical laws and rational laws as we know them. So, you know, if you talk about your hopes and dreams and somebody says, yeah, that's great, let's get back to reality now, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
That's that world between the worlds where the magic happens.
Yeah.
But then when we come back around to, but society needs you to make the donuts. Society needs you to get up at a certain time and do all of the things that everybody else does in order for society to keep working and be, you know, all just together, buttoned up, and everybody has their place. That's when we lose sight of, again, that the soul part of being a woman. Our job is to create.
Being a creator.
Right. Even if that means creating almost an alternate reality, kind of. That might be going a little far, but
I don't think so.
that's where the daydreaming happens.
It is.
Trying to create something that's different than what you currently have.
And the level of joy that comes along with that is enormous.
I agree. It's fun. I do remember as a kid playing make-believe. That was fun. Spending hours and hours and hours playing in an alternate universe.
You know, it's interesting. Malachi is three and a half almost. And he has the best imagination. And I listen to him through just awe-stricken eyes, ears, I suppose, because I will say one thing and he will immediately take that concept and he will thread a story.
Oh.
And
He's a storyteller.
and he talks for a good couple of minutes about that particular topic and what happened to him based on that topic. Everything in the past is
all
yesterday.
make-believe,
Right.
make-believe.
Yesterday this happened and blah, blah, blah. But he will take that one little thread and he will just continue the conversation, and it is full imagination.
Yeah.
Like this stuff didn't
Actually
happen in reality.
Right.
But he is so engrossed in it. And he looks at me. He doesn't look at me like, do you believe me?
Right.
He looks at me like, this is the goddamn truth. And I know that it's developmental.
Yeah.
I get all of that. And
Right.
his imagination I am inspired by his imagination. But that, I think he lives somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Like in that phase of his life, like that's a real place. Like he doesn't go there on purpose.
Right.
He goes there because it's fluid.
He doesn't really know the difference between make-believe and real.
And sometimes I feel like there's a part of that that's supposed to be that way, and we lose that somewhere.
Right.
That's why I think I'm just like in awe of it. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
I don't know what else to say about that. That's another 3/4 baked thing that I love and appreciate.
Fun. Absolutely. I think it's fun to, live vicariously through young children like that. They're not tainted by all the shoulds and the expectations. They are free. And
I think there's something to learn in it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Or unlearn, maybe is a better term for
maybe
that.
so. Yeah.
Okay.
On page 33, She talks about imagining the old woman as the quintessential 2 million-year-old woman. I'm not sure what that really means, quintessential 2 million years old. I don't know what that is, but she says she is the original wild woman who lives beneath and yet on the top side of the earth. She lives in and through us. We are surrounded by her. The deserts, the woodlands, the earth under our houses are 2 million years old and then some. So this is where it gets a little abstract and arty, right? She's talking about the earth.
Yeah.
It's been here for 2 million years. This goes back to the it's all connected thing, right? We come from the earth. We are part of the earth.
We return to the earth.
Right, exactly. She talks about how she's taken very deeply by women who like to dig in the earth.
Mm-hmm.
They plant bulbs for the spring. They poke blackened fingers into mucky soil, transplanting sharp-smelling tomato plants. They're digging down to the 2 million-year-old woman. They're looking for her toes and her paws. They want her for a present to themselves for which they feel of a peace and at peace.
When you and I talk about being outside and in
Yeah.
the garden, that's a connection
It
point.
is. I just need to get my hands in the dirt.
Right.
Sometimes it feels that way.
It does.
Yeah.
Except when you're dealing with Canadian
Well,
thistles.
not Canadian thistles. I'd rather do a lot of things than deal with Canadian thistles. But they get me to get my hands in the dirt regularly. There is that. She goes on to talk about without Mother Earth and that connection, women feel restless. She says that she's worked with many women over the years who begin their first session with her as they say something like, well, I don't feel bad. I don't feel good either.
Right.
It's like saying, I don't not like my job.
Right.
I don't not like my life.
There's just nothing.
Right. Yeah. Right. That condition is not a great mystery, she says. It comes from not enough muck.
Well, and it goes back to what I was referring to earlier in the tail end of the introduction about those feeling words associated with having lost your wild woman.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
Uninspired, unaroused.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just is.
Absolutely. She talks about babies are born with a wizened instinct. They know in their bones what is right and what to do about it. It's innate. So when you're talking about your 3-year-old grandson who just creates this magic world all for himself and shares it with you, that is an innate gift.
It is.
It says, if a woman holds on to this gift of being old while she is young and young while she is old, she will always know what comes next. If she has lost it, she can reclaim it with some purposeful work.
Right.
What do you have next?
Sorry.
Did you get caught up?
I'm stuck in my head a little bit.
Oh, okay.
It's okay.
Do you want me to keep going while you work things out?
That might be a while. I don't have like huge things after this.
Okay.
The only thing that I had jotted here was on page 34. The self must have freedom to move, to speak, to be angry, and to create. This self is durable, resilient, and possesses high intuition. It is the self that is, which is knowledgeable in the spirit dealings of death and birth.
Mm.
It is, I don't have anything more than that, I guess, just to compare it to culturally speaking, like the freedom to move, right? The freedom to speak, to be angry, and to create, like just those 4 things. It's hard
That feels big.
It's hard to even capture those 4 things.
Mm-hmm. Well, she talks about how even in the best of worlds, the soul needs refurbishing from time to time.
Over and over.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, that might be why it's difficult to capture them. They're not meant to be captured. There's something you're always striving for.
True, but I feel like I don't know, like this. Okay, fine. Fine. I recognize that through life and through different situations and perhaps obstacles and ebbs and flows and hills and valleys and all of that aspect, I recognize that you can lose some of that, right?
Yeah.
There isn't going to be an equal amount of movement or ability to speak or ability to express anger or to create in all situations. I get
All of
that.
the time.
Right. Though these feel really fucking fundamental to me.
They are.
If I can't speak, which is part of where I've been working so hard, if I cannot fucking speak
Right.
my truth,
Right.
no matter where I am in life, I got a real problem.
My throat just feels closed up.
I have a real problem.
Yeah.
Or create. Or to create. Like, we talk about like our regular everyday lives and all of the things that stop us
Yeah.
inside of ourselves from creating.
Right.
The language, the self-judgment, the rationalizations, all of the things. And that's bullshit.
I agree.
That's full bullshit.
It is.
So, I don't know, it's not so terrible to imagine that I should be able to speak and create no matter at what point in time and what circumstances I have in my life.
I completely agree.
Darn it.
I absolutely agree with you. I think that's where she goes to. The soul needs refurbishing from time to time. Yes, you should be able to do all of those things all of the time, especially the speaking part. But sometimes you need, she talks about like the adobes in the Southwest. A little bit peels off here and there, a little falls down, a little washes away. An adobe is essentially a mud hut, right? Mm-hmm. It's made with straw and mud and water and dirt, and you literally just form a little.
You have to keep
you have to keep repairing it, right? So she talks about how there's always an old round woman with bedroom slippered feet who is patting mud slurry on the adobe walls.
So you have to keep up with it.
That's it.
It's not something that you can leave unmaintained.
No, you can't. One time I spoke my truth. Now I'm good. I checked the box. I'm done.
Nope. I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I understand that. I think maybe I was looking at it through the lens of what you're saying is the maintenance on this has to be very deliberate.
Absolutely.
You have to continue to keep working on this,
right?
Because otherwise your hut will fall apart, and then you will stop speaking, or you won't feel comfortable to be angry when you actually are angry, or you will stop creating, which is the essence and the core of being a person or a woman. I get that. What I was perceiving it more as is, I have this particular circumstance, so I feel like I shouldn't be, or I can't speak my mind because of this circumstance. So I was looking at it through a different lens. You were saying, keep maintaining that, or you're going to lose it.
Right. So in those circumstances, there's the hole in your adobe hut.
Yeah.
And it needs to be patched back up.
Before it's big.
Before you have no hut left.
Right.
Right. You've just got a pile of mud and straw.
Right.
That's been washed of the mud.
I think we're saying the same thing.
In different ways.
We're going at it from two different angles.
I agree. I think we are saying
nothing
the same
unusual
things.
there.
No, right. She goes on to talk about how this old woman who's patting the mud slurry on these walls, she's the keeper of the soul. Without her, we lose our shape. Without an open supply line to her, humans are said to be soulless or damned souls. She gives shape to the soul house and makes more house by hand. She's the one in the old apron, the one whose dress is longer in the front than in the back.
Why?
Can you picture that? I can, because I have had dresses like that.
Me too.
I'm embarrassed, and I'm thinking of one time in particular. It was horrible.
It's less about the dress and more about the butt.
Sometimes they creep up
In my situation.
unfortunate ways. She's the one who pats. She's the soul maker, the wolf raiser, the keeper of things wild. You gotta have her. So in those circumstances where you feel stifled, where you feel like you can't or you shouldn't,
You need to
that's
go back
when you
and
need her.
tend.
Yeah,
You have to go back and tend.
absolutely.
And spend the time and
Yep.
mix the mud and go out there with your butt hanging out.
Absolutely. And they're not going to like it. They're really not going to like it. She says some people will not like it if you take a sniff at everything to see what it is. And for heaven's sakes, no lying on your back with your feet up in the air. Bad girl, bad wolf, bad dog. Right?
Do it anyway.
Yeah. Right. Go ahead. Enjoy yourself.
Right.
Yeah. That's why people do meditation to find alignment. That's why they do psychotherapy and analysis. That's why people analyze their dreams and make art. Why some people contemplate tarot cards, dance, drum, make theater, write poems, fire up their prayers. That's why we do all those things. It's the work of gathering all the bones together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we must sit at the fire and think about which song we will sing, which creation hymn, which recreation hymn. And the truths we tell will make the song.
Well, that part just makes me want to cry. That fills me up.
Yeah.
At the very tail end of 35 is where they start asking some of those open-ended questions.
Yep.
So, on your first whiz through this and you're like, I don't even know what half this shit even meant, right? It didn't resonate with me.
Find those questions.
Yeah. I think those questions at the end, there are some good questions to ask until one decides on the song, one's true song. What has happened to my soul voice? What are the buried bones of my life? Like, that's a really big
That's a big
question.
one.
Where do I start?
Those are all the triggers, aren't they?
Yeah.
Is that what those bones are?
I think the triggers help you identify them, but it's perhaps parts of you that have been squashed, that have been overlooked, that have been pushed down,
Neglected,
neglected,
disrespected.
Yeah. Right. Right. Like, the triggers are certainly going to help you identify those
Gotcha.
places. In what condition is my relationship to instinctual self? When was the last time I ran free? How do I make life come alive again? Like, those are
big questions.
really big questions.
That part reminded me of the episode we did. I've been everything to everyone. Now what?
Right.
Now what? Who
I'm
am
done
I?
doing my job.
Yeah.
The mundane, the requirements.
Yep.
I need to figure out who the fuck I am.
Right.
That's the bones.
What do I like? What do I even want to eat for dinner?
That's the bones.
It is the bones, isn't
Who
it?
am I?
The bones of your life
Geesh, we've been talking about this the whole time.
for over a year. Yeah.
Just different language.
Right. For sure. Wow. Look at us go.
I know.
She talks about, like dry bones, we often start out in the desert. We feel disenfranchised, alienated, not connected to even a cactus clump. The ancients called the desert the place of divine revelation. But for women, there's much more to it than that. It's again the I've been everything to everyone, now what?
Mm-hmm.
It's all of that. The roots of living things in the desert, the roots of living things hold on to that last tear of water, and the flower hoards its moisture by only appearing in early morning and late afternoon. This is like the lives of many women.
Yeah. That can only come out
Right.
at certain points.
The life in the desert is small but brilliant, and most of what occurs goes on underground. This is like the lives of many women. On the top, they look very ordinary, regular, nothing to see here.
Right.
But underneath, holy man, it's beautiful.
And
It's
secret.
full. It's, yes, right.
And often secret. Yeah.
Often secret even to ourselves.
Agree.
Yeah. She talks then, she moves on to, because she says the same thing, multiple times. She talks about how,
You love that.
well, she does. She talks about how the desert is not lush like a forest or a jungle. It's intense and mysterious. Many of us have lived desert lives, very small on the surface and enormous under the ground. Loba shows us the precious things that can come from that sort of psychic distribution.
I think that's so what flashed in my head when you were reading that part, because that resonates, like that feels true to me. It's probably why I journal like I do.
Yeah. You're reaching down under the surface, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's different
It's
there.
your Loba
it's
there.
deeper there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That
Than the
is
regular,
really cool, actually.
everyday stuff. Yeah.
This is the last part that I have in this chapter. She talks about a woman's psyche may have found its way to the desert out of resonance, or because of past cruelties, or because she was not allowed a larger life above ground. Often a woman feels that she lives in an empty place where there may be just one cactus with one brilliant red flower on it, and then in every direction for 500 miles there's nothing. But for the woman who will go 501 miles, there's something more. A small brave house, an old one, she's been waiting for you. Women don't want to be in the desert. They hate the frailty and the spareness of it. They keep trying to crank a rusty jalopy up and bump their way down the road to a fantasized shining of the city. But they're disappointed, for the lush and the wild is not there. It's in the spirit world, that in between the worlds, the Rio Abajo Rio, that river beneath the river. Right. She says, don't be a fool. Go back, stand under that one red flower, and walk straight ahead for that last hard mile. Go up and knock on the old weathered door, climb up to the cave, crawl through the window of a dream. Sift the desert and see what you find. It's the only work that we have to do. Not making the donuts.
Mm-mm. Not going after the flashy.
Right. All the things we think we should, all the things that we think will mean something, that will show our value.
It's superficial.
It's all superficial, right. None of that, we don't leave with any of that when we leave this earth.
And nor we sit here in a fucking Jeep and we're like, this means nothing to me. Like, I want something different than this.
Right.
Like, truly. Like, it's not even like looking at it after you're done here. We're looking at it and we're being like, this is not why we're supposed to be here.
It's not why I'm here.
So take the extra mile.
Keep walking. It's awfully thirsty out here.
Listen, my dress has been up over my ass for the last 237 miles. I got sunburned cheeks.
Only halfway there.
Could take an Adobe hot right about now. All right.
Well, she ends this. Her advice is go gather bones. And that's the end of chapter 1.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
All right. So chapter 2, I think, gets a little bit more in depth into like folklore.
Okay.
And I'm really excited about chapter 2. If I
Just
hadn't
keep
been
remembering,
excited,
Lisa's excited about this.
I'm very excited. I have lots of things to say about chapter 2.
Okay.
And I'm glad I have another week, because that'll give me a lot more things to say about chapter 2. It's a biggie.
Well, it's kind of a long chapter, too.
It's a real biggie.
All right.
She goes and she analyzes each part of it in the chapter. So I think that helps. If you're like, okay, so that's a weird little story, I don't know what it means, keep
Just
reading.
keep reading.
Because she's going to really dive into the analysis of it.
That's fair. All right.
All right, friends.
Well, that's the end of this. I realized at the end of our last episode, we did not do our usual sign off.
We didn't.
No, we just ended abruptly. So, sorry about that. We, of course, are thankful for Todd at Mind Garden Media.
Every day.
Absolutely. For all of his hard work in putting this podcast together. For as many hours as we sit here and talk and plan and think about this, he's putting in just as many hours, if not more, on the editing.
He'd walk through the desert with us.
He would. Mm-hmm. He absolutely would. Dang it. I'm going to want to be teary. Love you, Todd. Darn it. Anyway, so thanks to Todd at Mind Garden Media. And thank you to our listeners. Twice in the last week, I've had people reach out to me and tell me how much they're enjoying our podcast. And that was during a break.
Yeah.
So
it's a big deal.
it is a huge
We
deal.
appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Kim. So yeah, if you are enjoying our podcast, please do tell other people about it. Share, like, follow, smash all the buttons, do all the things.
And reach out.
Absolutely.
We love it.
We do love it. It honestly, we were both independently thinking, and then when we got to see each other again, talked about how, should we keep doing this? Shouldn't we? Where are we at with this? And when I shared that, 2 people have reached out just recently to say how much they enjoy it, that it was like
It's a done deal.
that made up our mind.
Yep.
Well, we're going to keep doing it then.
Yep.
So please do continue that. It gives us just it gives us a big boost.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it makes it worthwhile for us in addition to what we get out of it. Lisa and I sit around and talk about stuff like this all the time. So we could just do this on our own time, but to know that other people are getting something from it, that makes it really worthwhile.
It certainly does.
So thank you so much for that. And again, if you like this, share it, and you'll find us on, where
All
are
the
we? All over.
places, yeah.
Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music. We're all sorts of places. So just take a look around and you'll find us. We're there.
Always, every week.
All right. Till next time then.
Bye.
See ya.